Welcome. These will be my thoughts on The Flash, Season 1, Episode 19. Who is Harrison Wells? The episode is rated CVPG, so this video be. There will be spoilers for the Arrowverse leading up to and including this episode, not for any of it that came out after this episode first premiered, and another episode I love. So, this episode does not lend itself well to a LGBTQI plus reading, even though it is Pride Month. So instead, I am going to recommend a YouTube video by a member of the community, and it will... hold on. Did I already... No, yeah, I think... my memory... Here we go. Yeah, this one I definitely haven't recommended before. Now, Auntie Elaine's Patagonia sues Patagonia and goes mask off. Fantastic video. And yeah, I think that brings us to the... yeah, gonna try to keep this chronological. We'll see how it goes. And the... let's see. So I think the very first thing is the pizzas, which, yeah, I mean, that's one way to, get pizza with minimal hassle. Others, of course, include portal gun and, having a clone of yourself. Yeah, I thought they did a really great job with, right here in the, I believe, first scene, we have Kate, really struggling to accept that Wells is the Reverse Flash. And, which I guess, Reverse Flash, should that be pronounced South? The word backwards. Anyway. And yeah, by the end, she accepts that it has to be true. And let's see, I think that does. Yeah, it's very cool. Them go. I was wondering. I forget if I said it on camera, but I was wondering if they were going to go to Starling City to investigate, since and I thought they did a really great job with the there's really only two characters from Arrow that appear in this episode, but very, very excited about yeah, there's some really fantastic stuff there, as usual. These shows really do nail the character stuff. I think that brings us nicely to the right, and so they have, there's the thing about Kate might have to lie to Wells to hide Cisco. Yeah, and I think that is when we get the that, yeah. So the what's the word? Everyman, I guess, is what I will call. I guess I should go by them just in case. We see their face there at the end, and Hannibal definitely does look somewhat like Morph. Anyway, the yeah, at first it's like, wait, what? There's clearly something going on with this character, and then in retrospect we realize, right, the reason that there was no immediate reaction to being called by their name is they're not used to anyone referring to them by that name, and maybe didn't even know that it was part of the job description to unlock the door. And yeah, the thing about, just a few more things, before, yeah, and yeah, love the cut from seeing the stealing, and then we actually see them watching the surveillance footage and the actual person is accused. I will say I'm glad that the episode got to the reveal that it's a shapeshifter so quickly, because that was my immediate thought. Like, I appreciate it technically could have been mind control, but yeah. And yeah, some of my favorite stories of all time, either are centered on or at least feature people changing shape, and yeah. Um, I guess I'll just very briefly note, one of my favorites being the 1982 movie The Thing, and some variations on it that I feel like, I guess, might be spoilers to say out loud, but yeah. And let's see. Yeah, I was a good bit of, here the, like, Eddie is immediately ready to be like, okay, it's metahuman, right? And then later he's the one, being accused of something. Very nicely done. And I think that is when the others arrive in Starling City, or rather at the police department, and yeah, um, it's great seeing, you know, Quentin with, a cop from another city. So this is, he doesn't have, they're not, there's not really a chain of command connecting them. Basically just, and yeah, I thought it was great the way they talk about, hiding something, because, like, it is this very much parallel situation, hiding something from your daughter, or your daughter hiding something from you. And, he even asks, did she give a reason? Yeah, but it wasn't one that I was okay with. Because that is the thing, like, at some point, I feel like at some point, there's at least a chance that Iris might find out the truth. And, well, I mean, let's see. Okay, let me think. By the end of this episode, all she knows is that Eddie is working with the Flash. Yeah, I guess that pretty much also means she's realized the, yeah, I don't know. I'll have to wait and see how much, yeah, how much she's aware of by, anyway, yeah, and the fact that, Laurel, she's not calling him daddy now. She's just calling him captain. That feels like a choice. And yeah, like, at first they don't even realize, it's only because of the last names that they realize that the two of them are related. And I feel like that brings us to the let's see. Yeah, Kate trying to keep up appearances, and and it is credible. Cisco needed to help Dante. I mean, yeah, that is. I mean, if Wells knows pretty much anything about Dante, it's probably that he's, not as successful as Cisco. So that does check out. And let's see. Yeah, I think that is when they get the call about, the stolen good sale, and Eddie goes there, but every man makes him. And very clever, the thing, so yeah, Flash shows up and it's like, you're not fast with me. And every man's just like, I don't need to be, as soon as I, and yeah, crosses the, yeah, rounds the corner, and that's it. Like, which one is Everyman? That's, yeah, very, very nicely done. And it's also one of those things where it's a little sad that, like, so nobody was looking at Everyman's face and realized, oh, hey, that person just morphed. But, that is unfortunately very true about modern capitalistic society, especially in big cities. Anyway, I feel like that brings us to this second. So yeah, I think the next thing was when oh, actually, did that already happen? Well, whatever, I'll do it now. Cisco and Laurel talking, and yeah, very clever, because like, it's not that Cisco's the only person who does this sort of thing, but I can see Laurel not asking. Well, let's see. I mean, it would probably be Ray, and he is very busy, and they barely know each other. And I mean, she doesn't particularly know Cisco either, but I think she's also thinking of who is, who might she end up owing a favor that she might worry about, and who is, I mean, we find out Cisco's price by the end of the episode. And let's see. Yeah, the thing about, I know, those people, and she reveals she knows their secret identities, and his like, no, just pitch perfect. Like, I really love this actor's performance. Like, he gets it. Just, yeah. And yeah, he does. He is smart enough to realize there's a reason she's telling him this. And also the awkwardness of, I'm Black Canary. I love you. I mean, I love what you do. Because like, yeah, he's basically he's a fanboy, and he doesn't know how to talk to someone like that in person, so he accidentally, yeah. And yeah, she brings up the Sonic device, or is it Sanic? And I think I'll save my further thoughts on that when I get to that scene in the order. Anyway, other than that, yeah, I think that is when we go back to the so yeah, they talk about, okay, so it's definitely a shapeshifter, which I do also appreciate. If we had known before that scene, then that wouldn't have worked as well, because if Flash knew it was mind control, he wouldn't have given them any kind of a chance to, you know did I phrase that right? I mean, if he knew that it wasn't mind control, that it was shapeshifting, he wouldn't have given the shapeshifters chance and shapeshift to shapeshift. And yeah, they talk about, can every man copy powers as well, and that genuinely is such a cool. Like, I'm glad that ultimately he can't. They can't. But it was very cool that for like, I think half the episode we're genuinely not sure. So it's this thing of like, I mean, that could be, do we really want a third speedster running around? Literally. And I think that does, yeah, I believe that's when they get to the place with the car accident. And yeah, I quite appreciate, yeah, Quentin is just like, I mean, I feel like you probably get more out of the pictures. Yes and no. It's very new to him with this kind of things getting this sci-fi. He can deal with Mirakuru, but this is like very, very new to him. And yeah, we get to see the effect again of the, what do they say, tachyon particles, making liquid, yeah. And yeah, the thing about like, oh, so it's, you have I can't quite furrow my brow like he does. You have a metal detector. Well, yeah, but it's waste for tachyon particles. But yeah, and Quentin is like, where did you find this guy? And yeah, they do find the body, and yeah, it was really great thing. Like, please tell me that's not what I think it is. Well, give that guy a hand. Oh, it's a hand. I thought it was a foot. That's actually a distinction without a difference, I guess. And let's see. Yeah. And they talk about, they think they know who it is, but they're going to have to run a test. And then the thing about, like, you have to keep this secret or your daughter could be in danger. And let's see. That is a genuinely really effective because that's one of the only ways he's willing to hide something, because he's way back on this whole not working outside the law thing, And yeah, so that is when Barry and Eddie go to, they have a lead, such as it is, and to grandmother's house they go. And I will say I knew almost immediately that is definitely Everyman in disguise, but at the same time that is also, it was revealed so quickly. And let's see. Yeah, I think they do such a great job with these little clues, because for one, when I think it's Eddie ends up sitting directly onto the knitting. So first off, I've had grandmothers. They don't forget where they put their knitting. They don't ask you, oh, just, have a seat, and then not immediately move the knitting away from literally every flat surface that they figure you might sit on. And grandma also doesn't react when, because we see Eddie like awkwardly, take the knitting out and put it. I think it's Eddie, maybe it's Barry, one of them, no reaction still, not even like, oh, don't worry about that, I'll start a new one, or you can't have done much damage to it or something. But yeah, and then immediately, and we also have the thing about, like, why would I know? Oh, right, the police report that I personally filed, me, Grandma Bates, yes. And yeah, so I feel like it's already, they talk about, like, how could you name a kid Hannibal, which, listen, I'm not the one saying it. The episode said it. I'm just commenting on, the fact that in addition to using a name that a lot of people think of in connection to very specific fictional serial killer, it actually gets a little worse, because Hannibal's father was named Norman. And this is, of course, Norma. Seriously, though, yeah, my wrists are too sore to check right now, but I do wonder if this character was named that before. Because like, I appreciate this character could have a long history in the comics, but I don't know. It feels to me like named after Hannibal Lecter and Norman Bates, and that is wonderfully cheesy. Anyway, I mean, I appreciate, listen, I've read comic books that predate Psycho, so it's not. I actually forget, when did the Hannibal Lecter books come out? Whatever. Anyway, the yeah, and really, really clever that because there was indeed, physical contact between Everyman and Eddie, and I really loved that Everyman, because I don't think it was accidental that Everyman didn't move away from the camera, or I guess, let's see, it probably would have made sense to shoot the camera first, because the two cops might have shot, but like, clearly Everyman knew there was a camera there, or wouldn't have shot it. So it looks as though Eddie just did this, and it makes for a very effective frame job. And I loved that he refuses to let Barry help him run, even though, of course, yeah, they could, but and I mean, I have it on good authority, everybody runs, but he's right, it would make it much, much worse. Like, yeah. And yeah, and the fact that Eddie is like, listen, I understand that you're thinking of your father. He even says, I'm not letting this happen again. And the fact that Barry respects his decision. He ends up taking it back. And then, because every man saw both of them, disguises themselves as Eddie and goes to Barry's place. Yeah. And just the little things of the, let's see. Yeah, the story of like, oh yeah, the captain called in a favor. And, like immediately we are thinking of Barry. If he, he's still a little bit naive, but, we're thinking, if the captain was gonna do that, why didn't he do it before, or at least tell Eddie that he was going to make that attempt or something, And yeah, the thing about like, I just talked to Iris. Why didn't you tell her? Because I have no idea who she is. I mean, if that's not a viable explanation, I do not know what is. And ties up Barry upstairs and disguises, and the little thing of, let's see. I think, he says, hey, you, to Kate. And then, here I am to Iris. And it's just, really, really nicely done of, And, the thing about him trying to figure out, Hannibal, every man trying to figure out, would that take my powers away permanently or what? And, very clever to go with, because, the for one thing, how many others are already working on this, and they're going to keep coming. But if every man can maneuver the situation effectively, which, like, genuinely, if Wells hadn't seen through it, that it could have gone much worse. And so we have the so let's see. At one point, Kate does somewhat kiss back, but certainly every man did not wait for her to consent, verbally or otherwise. So it's rare for Arrowverse to have non-consensual, So I appreciate that it is a villain doing it, and it is in order to manipulate a situation. It's about power, as sexually predatory behavior is. I mean, it's not that, just couldn't contain, like, I appreciate that sometimes that is something, though, if that's the problem, then, that's something to work on. But a huge chunk of the time, it is about power. It's about controlling the other person, not letting them say no. And let's see. I think there was probably also someone in the writer's room who really wanted... I wonder if they put that in, like, the TV promo, maybe, for the episode. But someone wanted these two to kiss. And it does, of course, complicate that relationship, even though that wasn't the real Barry. And, I'm still not sure. Like, I wouldn't rule out that they will at least temporarily be together. But we'll see. I'll see. Pretty sure most people watching this video have already watched the show, but whatever. Anyway, I think... Doesn't that pretty much cover? Let's see. There's at least one more thing I really wanted to note about. The bit where every Barry man, is standing in front of, is like, so I just have to spin it. You're standing in front of the spinny spin. And I appreciate the way that they have every man, like, lingering right behind people. Very nicely done on that. And then Iris shows up, and she has also figured out about the whole thing. And yeah, fortunately, Wells is able to take out every man. And yeah, great detail about the yeah, every man is left-handed, and these others are right-handed. Talk about sinister. And yeah, Wells and Kate do realize it's probably not the best idea for Iris to take, but at the same time, it's also like, I mean, she has a lot to lose here. That's Eddie, and yeah, and yeah, really, really clever, this thing of like turning into this little girl and claim, screaming, saying been kidnapped. Of course people are gonna try to help there, and it's not like, yeah, it's true, like it's not like you can just drive away in this situation. Let's see, I think that does bring us to the I will say I was very, very briefly wondering if when if that was every man as Kate, every Kate in the waking up Barry, especially because of the slap. Which actually, yeah, come to think of it, I guess maybe the slap was supposed to be like she's upset about the kiss, maybe, and yeah, maybe. I will say, literally every single actor in this episode who had to play a version of themselves as you know imitated by every man, fantastic performance, like through and through. Just it's not easy to pretend like you are posing as someone else. Acting is difficult under the best of circumstances, and that's a real extra hurdle. Yeah, I think that does bring us to the yeah, so yeah, we see Cisco hand the see, I was hoping we'd get here, and I appreciate that it is indeed Dynalance who does, because once again, that is what I'm familiar with from the comics, but he even names it, because Cisco's all about nicknaming things. Canary Cry, that's so cool. Oh, I can hardly wait to see that in action. And we find out that yeah, in return, there are now pictures that she says, he is not to show to anyone, but pictures of him and her as Canary. And yeah, I think it does well to like straddle the line of it's kind of adorkable that that's the thing he wants. It's not going like really uncomfortably far. Like I would think it was really gross if he was like, I'll do it for a kiss or something, And yeah, I don't know. I feel like this is something that Laurel would be willing to do, especially if she feels confident that he really isn't going to show it to anyone else. And let's see. Yeah, I will just briefly note that I definitely get the sense, based on the visual design of the Canary Cry that we're introduced in this episode, that it is a necklace and perhaps has a connection to, like, maybe it will be, connected to her voice in some way, which, like, yeah, we're getting extremely close to the version that I'm familiar with from the comics, so that is super cool. Yeah, I think that is what they're... yeah, I guess I'll just very briefly note, I didn't feel like it's one of those cases where sometimes you gotta like explain, well, why don't the other characters show up? I don't know that, like, what would the rest of the Arrow cast do here? It's that there's not really, like, police work is not the sort of primary, you know, yeah. Quentin is the major character who's a cop, and so he's there, and it makes, Laurel was there for her job, and yeah, and he's being difficult. He said, "End of day," like I said, and I think that does bring right. And also, it's definitely one of those cases where I feel like if Barry had gone to Starling City, it might have felt a little bit like, is he and Oliver not gonna at least say hello to each other, like, at all? But Cisco, I don't know. I suppose an argument could maybe be made for Felicity, but outside, well, I guess also Ray, since the, that team up. But I don't know. I don't think it's necessary with, and certainly they are very busy in, yeah, their show with other very important things. Now, I believe that does cover. So back to the, yeah, so they talk about, trying to find Everyman, and yeah, very clever that, the scanner detects something. And so Flash pursues, and actually, is this also, I think I do want to very briefly note the, no, wait, no, yeah, that can wait. Anyway, yeah, so the big action climax, as yeah, ultimately, he catches up to Everyman, and Everyman tries to psych him out by, posing and, morphing into, and yeah, love seeing Kate in, get to be part of a fight like that, because, like, that's not something we're used to seeing. And let's see, I think pretty much, yeah, and then, well, maybe Iris will be too much for. I wanted to very briefly note, so this, I felt like, I guess I don't want to give away all, so I'll just say the, yeah, other than Terminator 3, this did remind me of, like, the level of, like, creativity and well thought outness to, shape-shifting use, as well as, I guess X-Men movies other than The Last Stand. I think that's what I'll leave it at. And yeah, the part where he or yeah, Everyman morphs into right, let's see, I'm struggling to remember the exact order, but at one point, Everyman morphs into Eddie. Now, I am not 100% certain that there isn't at least a little bit of, like, pent up frustration, because he sure does very leaps into beating the ever living crap out of every Eddie man. And I don't know, I wouldn't rule out that maybe there is some, like, he's eager to finally be able to hit someone who looks like that, sounds like that, I don't know. And yeah, turning into the Flash, and this is after it's been confirmed, it is okay to touch the metahuman with consent, and because the it can't copy powers. And I think that does bring us, let's see, there's at least one more thing that, yeah, for sure I got a I'll just leave it at, it reminded me of a Terminator scene in one of the movies when, Barry, you know, jabs with the, yeah, and the morphing. And yeah, I like Barry, the one and only. And I guess that pretty much brings us to the, yeah, love the, yeah, just the subtle little, Wells is like, how was it in Starling City? I know you went there. Maybe we should sit down together again at some point. Maybe I should remind you that there's people you could lose. Just hypothetically, no reason at all for me to say this, but just wanted to, yeah. And let's see. I feel like yeah, and so Eddie tells Iris at least some of the truth, and we're not sure how much. Yeah, oh, the part where so Wells has to hide his secret by getting back into the wheelchair, and Flash, brings her away from there, pointing out, if you talk to him, that is definitely going to, yeah. And also her pointing out, you're going to ruin his life, my life, And let's see. So this was, let's see. I don't know. It reminded me a little bit of, so yeah, you have the line about you're going to ruin this man's life. I forget what the sort of atmosphere was in 2015 when this aired originally, but certainly like by today's standards, those words when spoken, like, I don't know. I will say the first thing that those words bring to mind for me is when misogynistic men will try to say, oh, yeah, okay, so there's a substantial amount of evidence that this person is a sexual predator, but are you just going to ruin their life? So, considering how much evidence there already is against Wells, I don't know. I'm not sure if that's what they were invoking. Again, I don't remember how people were talking about that kind of thing in 2015, but yeah, I think that does bring us nicely to the tease at the end, which, yeah, it worked. I am very, I can hardly wait to see the, uh, the outcome of that. Oh, yeah. The thing with scanning and, like, so what, you never ran for? Of course I did, but I didn't have any reason to look anywhere other than the specific, particle accelerator room. And, yeah, Wells didn't know about this, so the 3D model. And, yeah, then they go there because it does exist, even though they didn't think it did before now. And I will say, I thought that it needed like specific fingerprints, but I guess it's just if you put your hand there, it opens, or maybe it's also made for Barry in case Wells ever convinces him. I'm not entirely sure, but certainly, I mean, it's not like Barry just randomly runs his hand across walls or something. That would be pretty weird. And for him to do. I'm not saying that it's wrong for anyone to do. It would feel out of character for him. Now, yeah, so they see the suit. I feel like there's probably at least one misogynistic viewer of this would say, I'm sure she's still not convinced. And they see the headline about Flash's disappearance in the past. I mean, the future. I don't know. It feels a little weird to watch this, several years after. It's like, oh wow, so he has like a super old, a 2-year-old newspaper, huh? But I guess I did want to just very briefly know. You know what I realized just like a day or two ago? So I wanted to briefly acknowledge there are aspects of the DCEU Flash movie that I do love. I said as much in my video on it, but I don't really care for the two, you know, peers, at least age-wise, of Barry's in that movie that work with him. So much so that I literally don't even remember if that's supposed to be other versions of Kate and Cisco, maybe? Anyway, so I think that is just about everything. Let's see. Right. I wanted to very briefly, Arts Cafe, um, my years-long friend and subscriber who requested the Arrowverse, among other things, almost all of which I love so far, asked me to theorize why Cisco can remember something that technically didn't happen to him, because the timeline, I don't know. Right now, I guess if since I was asked, I will briefly, I'm guessing it's something like that it did actually happen, and what has happened, like hypothetically, maybe you can undo it. It's, not 100%, or rather, some things can be undone clearly because that one was, Cisco is still alive. But the fact that it did happen means that, if you save someone's life, they will remember their death. If it's that's, I'm that would be my current theory, but subject to change in the light of more evidence. Right. So the other thing I wanted to, I appreciate the thing about like how at this point Hannibal doesn't even remember who they are. And let's see. Yeah, the part with posing as Kate, and then Caitlin being like, "Who would fall for that?" That was pretty funny, and it's cool to see. I've seen Daniel Panabaker play characters very different from Kate already, but yeah, this version, because like it's nothing like Kate. Kate would never talk like that, just yeah. And I do also appreciate, like, yeah, through and through, like, every man does clearly think about, like, okay, what form should I take and how should I speak as this form, things like that, So yeah, the innocence of this, young girl, the access of the person robbing the place at the start, approaching cops as a cop, just yeah, through and through, and friends as friends, and also the fact that I mean, that is the thing. Yeah, by the end of this episode, Kate must have realized, or yeah, obviously realized, yeah, she physically touched someone she thought was Barry and isn't, and that is, making her uncomfortable, very understandably. So far in this episode, they kind of just make a little bit of a joke, but I don't know. I can imagine in future episodes they will, like expand on. There will be like yeah, long-term consequences. Once again, so far the Arrowverse is really, really great on consent, and it's not as though every piece of media from this time was. Did want to very briefly note, so I like the I'm struggling to recall her name, but uh, was she a DA, ADA, something like that? And not Laurel, the one in Central City. And let's see, wait, am I getting that city name right? Whatever, the same city as the Flash, saying, Flash ran past her once and it was just, gust of wind, but it was very cool, and she has no idea she's talking to the Flash. It's, yeah, I liked that. And also this thing of, yeah, she says something along the lines of, oh wait, no, never mind. That's the, yeah, the thing about, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be, you know, because there's the people who have to get exonerated now because of the, yeah, Everyman, and we have the thing there, and also the bit in the car about, seems like a lot of things are gonna, a lot of strange things here. And yeah, I mean, I'll say we're like almost through season 1. I think there's like 9 total, and I feel like that almost covers everything. Okay, I'm just mentally gonna fast forward through the entire episode real quick to see if there's anything else that I was really thinking. I definitely wanted to make sure to go over. So the let's see. I guess that is just about everything. Yeah, so let's see. We have the thing about the Right, I will also say, so ultimately, like, this one was a fairly harmless one. I don't know, I guess I did already comment on it a little bit, but I did want to really underline, we are still seeing, like, Laurel, you know, there is a little bit of manipulation in the way she's dealing with Cisco, and I do appreciate that. She is in a better place than she was earlier in Arrow, that show, but in some ways there is perhaps still, yeah, not least of which the death threat against Cisco. But yeah, there are things where she's still, yeah. Anyway, with that, yeah. So I've already said I figure they will, they might at least do more with Kate's discomfort around Barry. The part where he touches her and she's, this is after the kiss, and so the whole yeah, she's, yeah, a little uncomfortable there. But yeah, the let's see. Yeah, so she says something along the lines of, "Well, it's okay. You're welcome. No need to hug me or anything." So, I mean, she knows, of course, that it was Everyman and not Barry, but I suppose, yeah, if given the circumstance, it is an understandable reaction, and it's also possible that she thinks there's a little bit of, maybe Barry has a little bit of Dropsy the Clown in him. I mean, Dropsy does accept when someone doesn't consent to a hug, as we all should.